the same time, only 5% of the economists in the survey expect a comprehensive trade deal between the United States and China. For more, we welcome now our panel, Jeannie Zaino, political science professor at Iona College and senior advisor at Applied Techonomics here in New York, and Genevieve Wood, senior advisor to the Heritage Foundation in Washington. So, Genevieve, I'll start with you. It strikes me, watching not only the president, but also Larry Kudlow and Peter Navarro over the weekend talk about, boy, there's not going to be a recession. It felt like they were trying to really stave it off, that they're worried about it.
Well, look, a recession is never good for anybody who's running for office. As we well know, regardless of political party, if the economy is doing well, then the candidate who's currently the incumbent usually does well as well. Which is one reason I think you see all the Democratic candidates, David, almost, I hate to say it, but almost wishing for a recession. I think because they would like to see the economy take a downturn. But look, the economy is doing well right now. Markets will go up and down. I think trade talks have a big impact on this. But in terms of unemployment numbers and new businesses starting, all of those numbers point in the right direction. So I think it's very, no one knows exactly for sure when the next recession is coming, but I think there's a lot that can be done to keep it out of that factor, and that's probably stabilizing some of the trade talks that we hear about. And frankly, if Congress and Washington would start balancing budgets as opposed to putting those numbers forward, that could make a big difference as well.
So, Jeannie, what about the point Genevieve raises, which is a good one, which is we're going to see the Republicans talk up the economy, and the Democrats have to be careful about they're not talking down the economy, because you don't want to vote for somebody who wishes failure.
Yeah, and nobody in America or anywhere, or certainly candidates for the presidency, should be wishing failure. I mean, a recession is very, very detrimental to all of us, including, most importantly, workers in the United States. That said, I think, the president has a peculiar problem on his hands, which is much of this is being driven by his tariff wars, not just with China, but with other of our big trading partners, including Canada, including Mexico and others. And he owns that. So if he doesn't resolve the tariffs, and, I trust the economists when they say it's unlikely he will, what incentive does China really have to come to the table at this point? They too see the polls. So the president is in a tough position here, and that's why you had the administration out on the Sunday talk shows yesterday trying to talk up the economy. I hope that they are right and the economy stays strong. Consumer confidence is strong, but we're going to have a recession, and timing is going to be key, and hopefully it's not a bad one.
So, Genevieve, it raises the question of if we are having difficulties, and certainly last week was a sobering week in the markets, whatever you think about it, it was sobering. If we are headed for a bumpy time here, how much of it is because of the trade dispute that Jeannie talks about? How much of it is because of the Fed? The President Trump tweeted yet again this morning, the Fed rate over a fairly short period of time should be reduced by at least 100 basis points, with perhaps some quantitative easing as well. If that happened, our economy would be even better, and the world economy would be greatly and quickly enhanced, good for everyone. Is that really the solution to the problem, is lower interest rates?
Well, I mean, look, I think it's very hard for anybody to say this is exactly what will or won't cause a recession. I mean, let me just go back to the trade thing for one moment. I think this is where the president ought to come out and say, when Congress is back in September, we have a deal that we've made with Canada and Mexico, but Congress needs to pass that. That's up to them to get done. China is a big player, absolutely, but they are not the only player when it comes to U.S. trade negotiations. And there's a lot of good news out there, and I think where the White House has made some great inroads, Mexico and the Canada deal being one of them, but Congress has to pass it. And if you start having some deals like that coming forward, I think it does bring more stability, and I think that will contribute to the economy moving forward.
Jeannie, I want to ask, if anything, a broader question here, and that is the future of capitalism. A lot of people have written about that. Ray Dalio has. We've had Jamie Dimon out. The Business Roundtable came out and changed their statement, actually, about the priorities for corporations, saying it can't be only about the shareholders. It can't be only shareholder value. You have to take into account other stakeholders, the workers and the consumers, the customers, things like that. Alex Gorski, who's the CEO of Johnson & Johnson, said this new statement better reflects the way corporations can and should operate today. It affirms the essential role corporations can play in improving our society when CEOs are truly committed to meeting the needs of all stakeholders. So that sounds pretty good. To what extent is this reflecting a political reality that people are getting a little leery of big corporations?
Yeah, I mean, I say hallelujah to the statement they issued. Corporations corporations are a key part of our society. They play a key role, obviously, in our economy, but have so much more influence, and they should be concerned about the people who are impacted by the decisions they are making. So I think this is a long overdue, shift, if you will, and incredibly welcome. And, whether they're bowing to political pressure, I can't say, but I do think they are recognizing that these are power players in the world, and they impact people around the world, including workers, including their own customers, and that is important, and they need to recognize that in a concerted way. I think, by the way, that makes the capitalism much stronger rather than weaker, so I see this as a positive sign for capitalism.
What do you think about it, Genevieve? Could it take some of the sting out of the populism, some of the concerns of populism, people feeling they got left behind, if really we did believe the corporations were worried about all of us?
Well, I think most people want to think that. They want it. Look, any business that treats its customer base well, treats its workers well, and treats its shareholders well, usually is going to perform well. I mean, you should be looking at all those different areas. But I think what can be concerning for some is when they see corporations and big business in this country becoming very politically correct and kind of kowtowing to any kind of political moves, what you might kind of call the woke corporation experience, which turns off a lot of customers. So I think it's important to listen to all those different constituencies and not get bought in by just maybe who's the loudest, but really look at your full customer base. So
unpack that just for a moment, Genevieve. Are you talking about environmental issues and climate change?
It could be that. It could be the Gillette razor commercials. I mean, there's the NFL and all the debates that you happen there. I mean, you look across the landscape and you see a lot of companies. It looks like kowtowing or bowing, if you will, to kind of the altar of political correctness, which turns off a lot of customers.
We finally got woke into the program. I'm really pleased with that. Okay, many thanks to our panel, Jeannie Zaino in New York and Genevieve Wood in Washington. Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you.